welcome back everyone. Joined today by a big legend in these parts in rugby league. So 4 grand finals, 4 Challenge Cups and back-to-back Man of Steel. Not been a bad career, Scully.
No, it's been pretty enjoyable, I'll be honest. Obviously started my professional career at Warrington and then moved to Saints when I was 19.
Yeah, I was looking though, and I read a thing about you that it wasn't always rugby at the start, was it? Was you more into footy?
Yeah, well, my eldest brother Lee, so he's into footy. We lived in Oldham in Brighton, so he played for a team called Fells with Tigers. So I used to obviously go to training with him. I had up to 8 years old when I eventually started playing rugby. So just followed Lee and used to go to the games, used to go to training sessions, and I have all ambitions of following him, and playing soccer. I jumped in a few games on. He's 3 years older than me. Jumped in a few games with them, loved it, and that was,
Got to have been a centre half, haven't you?
Well, I played for school. So I think I was always destined to be a rugby player. The way I played football. So centre half or goalie. So when I played for the school team, there's one of the other rugby lads who was the same. He ended up being a professional rugby player, and we used to do half a game each. So one would start centre half, one would start in goal, and then swap at half time.
Right.
So
wow.
I think they were the only positions to right for us.
Yeah, and then when you sort of get into, because eventually what did the penny just drop that you?
Well, my dad played rugby league, so he played at Oldham, St Helens and Shaw. So we used to go to the games. He was kicking a ball about. So I've grown up in sport. Always had a cricket bat, a golf club, a football, a rugby ball. Playing tennis whenever Wimbledon was on. It was everything revolved around sport. Very much different than how kids grew up today. And so it always been sport based. So we go to the rugby games. I'd always enjoy watching my dad play, but more having a game on the side. With the mates and other kids. And then there was an advert in the Oldham Evening Cron for a new team that was starting up, a team called Royton Tigers, and they wanted players to go along to the first ever training session at High Barn School in Royton. And it was in the school summer holidays, so our Lee was a bit older than us, and I think very different then as well. My mum and dad worked full time, but we'd stay at home and what have you.
Yeah.
Or like the younger ones, I'd have childminders, and so this training session was on, and I pretty much got told you're going. You've no choice.
Yeah.
Danny wanted to go, my younger brother, and I got dragged there, and I remember kicking and screaming. I didn't want to play rugby. I wanted to be a footballer, and from that first ever session, I knew it was for me.
Did
it was,
you?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Loved it. Just the physicality. I think I was the middle one of 3 brothers anyway, so I'd spent all my life fighting and wrestling and but thoroughly enjoyed the game and took to it pretty well. It was mad. So that was when I was 8. And then by the end of that year, I actually captained Greater Manchester Youth under 9s a year below. So I played in the same team. That was the first time me and Adrian Morley played together.
Right, yeah.
As 8 and 9 year olds. And never looked back.
Yeah.
Pretty much from then, progressed through the amateur game.
Yeah.
And, pretty much captained every county team.
When did it sort of, was there a moment when Warrington come in for you? Or?
Yes, so they'd watch me through. So I actually signed when I was 14.
Right,
I had quite a bit of interest, probably that year before, and a lot of the clubs had come in. As I say, I was Lancashire captain. I'd captained the county all the way through, and our school at Oldham Council, we'd won England schools. I think there was always interest in there, and probably from 11, 12 years old, I really got into the training as well. Other than my family, I'd say the biggest influence on my career was a guy called Ken Wilson, Wilson from Waterhead. So it was a Waterhead rugby club, but he kind of run the gym. So it was like night sessions and what have you. And he was a bit of a legend within boxing and rugby league. He played for Oldham, boxed in the army. And an absolute legend at Waterhead, but a real tough, rugged one of these,
one of the old school,
proper old school. Yeah, he won't get away with it. He won't get away with it now, and it's mad because
he won't get away with it now, and it's crazy, isn't it?
And the influence he had on a lot of people. You speak to Barry McDermott, and Barry will be the same. Barry was under him. Just how to be disciplined, how to be dedicated. There's no shortcuts in working hard and developing your skills and your strengths. And
do you know when you put that to your coaching, when you've been like coaching the Knights or whatever, wherever you've been coaching, when you see the sort of way that it happened for you and others, and that hardened style, and then you see it now, is it a bit like? Does it leave a bit of a bitter taste?
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
we are now like a nation of like, you can't upset people.
It's happy clappy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can't. You can't tell people the truth.
Yeah.
And you see some players, and I'm massive, and it's been brilliant working with Sean Wayne over the last probably 3 years. In the build up to the World Cup, because Wayne's philosophies are, he likes all the stuff that all the stuff that are by choice, effort based. All the things that don't require skill. It's about your effort, your enthusiasm, your discipline, and they're my philosophies really in coaching. It's a very simple game, rugby league. I don't think you need to overcomplicate it. There's no substitute for fitness and for skill. And they're stuff that you can work on. I've played with some players, and I talk about this when you do talks in school and whatever, and people say about natural ability, and natural ability will always open the door for you.
Yeah.
But then it comes down to hard work and dedication and discipline. Yeah. And I've known a lot of players with all the ability in the world, but they didn't have the other bit. Yeah. And they failed. And they fell by the wayside. But I've also known players who nothing come easy to them, skill wise, but they worked 120% harder than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And these guys have got Super League rings and World Club Championships, and all by wanting to make it, wanting to put the effort in, wanting to work harder than anybody else because they knew they had to. Yeah. And it frustrates me when you see some players, and even at top level, being involved with England, certainly watching players through Super League who would be in contention if they change the mindset and their effort based things. And it's frustrating. Yeah,
I heard George told me this, and I heard Sam Tompkins say it on a podcast as well about Sean Wayne, and he said, like, even after they'd ate or whatever, he'd make them like take the plates in, put them in the sink, thank the catering staff. It's all the small things.
It's the small details, and they're the things that, if you shortcut on all them things, when it gets tough, when it gets tough in games, or you need to dig in for one another. That's where they come back and bite you. Yeah. Because you've took shortcuts in your life, and I'm a massive believer in that, and I just think the discipline and dedication and effort based things in games. Yeah. Those who when you're talking about the technicalities of the game, those who want to kick chase harder than anybody else, those who want to get back behind the ball and offer themselves, for somebody else. They're the things that win matches. Yeah. Not big plays. Big plays happen, within games, but you've got to do the hard stuff first.
I remember a coach, like obviously in the football background, but one of the coach that I worked with one time said, it's hard to have a bad game in a sense, because he said if you're not, your passing's off or your touch is off or whatever, go and affect the player that you're playing opposite and stop him having a good game. Get into him, run all over him. Yeah. He said, and that's as good as anything.
Do you know what people ask us of the success that we had at St Helens and what was it? What and a true believer that it was the people and the players, more the people than the players that we signed. And you look at players and you say like James Roby, obviously he's in everybody's eye at the moment because he's just going into his 20th season and the highest number of Super League caps, and you say how is he still doing it? Because he does the little things well, but he doesn't just do them on game day. He does them day in day out in training. His standards never slip, and you've never seen a bad game for James Roby would be a 7 out of 8, or a 7 out of 10. But you never see him an 8 or under.
Yeah.
Because it's them standards, and Paul Wellens was the same, Kieran Cunningham was the same. I like to think I was the same in regards to doing the little things, the attitude based things, right, day in day out and week in week out when you played.
Yeah, and would you probably say, because I've seen it in the football background, that when you get sort of 4 or 5 who are like that, it rubs off on the group massively.
Yeah, massive. There's nothing like pressure from your peers, and not even pressure. Players buy into it. You hear a lot of talking about Saints at the moment. The current team, obviously, 4 wins in a row in winning the Super League, and they'll tell you the same. It's about the standards that the players set, not the coaches, and they don't drill it into the people. The players set the standard, and the players drive the standards.
Yeah,
and there's nothing more powerful than getting that from your fellow players. And I think that's something we had. The best captain I've played under was Chris Joynt, and Joynty was not one who he never had to say a lot. Was not a massive talker, but he led the way with his actions, with his standards, with his performance. When he had to say something, people listened.
Yeah.
So that's always something. I always found that when you're a captain, you've got to lead the way with your own performance and with your own standards, because it's difficult to get into somebody else when you're not doing it yourself.
It's hard work to come in at half time, innit, when you're thinking, I've had a bit of a stinker myself, and then you're digging someone out in it. I've jotted a few things down, but you were 16, 17 when you made your debut. Is that right?
Yeah, for Warrington. Yeah, it'd be 93, 94.
Yeah.
Yeah, made my debut against Salford. So that was in the first year that I joined Warrington from high. Obviously, very different then. There was no scholarship. Obviously, academy was the first age. So it was when you left school, you joined the professional ranks.
Yeah.
I only played a handful of games in the academy. Was straight into the A team, what they call it, the Alliance, the reserve grade. And then I played the back. I think it was the last 4 or 5 games of that first season in the first team. So it was fantastic to progress so quickly, but I've always been one that I've always backed my own ability. And I've never been shy. When you get into that first team environment, I'm here for a reason, because I'm doing the business on the field, and I'm not going to sit back and sit in the sidelines. And when I come into a team there with likes of Greg Mackey, Kelly Shelford, Bruce Maguire. Great Jonathan Davis, who's a good friend of mine now. Big names within the game. But do you know what? They couldn't have been better at embracing me and really making you feel confident.
It is hard though. Particularly at that age, you see it when people get into that dressing room environment. Some people do just freeze, don't they, like a rabbit in the headlights, so to speak. And it's so true. You're there for a reason. Just go and be yourself. Go and do what you've done.
And do you know what? Senior players, and I've had it when I'm a senior player at Saints and young players come in, you love it. No, I don't mean being cocky and being smart, but you've earned the right to be there. Yeah. And if you want to say something or you've got an opinion on things, shout up. And that's what I like with young players, and because that aids their development as well. Yeah.
And from there, so the following season was straight in regular. That season, and you were named in the team of the year that year, wasn't you?
So we had a shortened season after that, which was that centenary season, which was obviously the small shortened turnaround season from winter to summer, obviously, because Super League was coming in then in '96. So I had a good year. Was one of the main players at Warrington that second year, and then obviously coming into the Super League season, and got named in the dream team in the.
What was the nights out like after you knew you were in that? Was it? I bet there was a few beers up there.
Do you know what? It was. I always had a good group of lads at Warrington as well. Real close knit. Players I'm still very good friends with now. I've nothing but great things to say about Warrington. You know, it was a club that gave me opportunity. They did everything by me, and you know, I know I eventually moved, but that was more about my ambition. And Warrington was a very different club than it is now. You know, financially, obviously the big one was we sold Yeston as well to Leeds, which was pretty much a sign that, you know, he's probably the best player in Super League at the time. That Warrington didn't have the funds and the ambition to, you know, to challenge,
like a cherry pick club.
Yeah. It was just, you know, we knew financially they were struggling. You know, there were certain times we were chasing for salaries, and I wanted to be. I'd already broke into the Great Britain setup. I was playing with your Farrells and Gouldings and Jointies and players like that, and these were playing in Challenge Cup finals and winning championships, and that's all I wanted to do. You know, it wasn't about getting more money. Warrington were brilliant with me. Peter Hyam, I can't speak highly enough of, but it was about progressing my career, and I didn't think that was going to happen at Warrington at the time because of the finances. You know, and selling our best players. So that's the reason the move came around, but nothing but great things to say about the club, and still got a lot of friends there.
And how did it, you know, so you must have known at the time that, you know, Saints were in for you, but how did it, if you could just like, how did it all come about really, Paul? Was it
so pretty much when I got back from the tour, I actually asked for a meeting with Peter Hyam. So me and my dad went up to his house, and just explained it. You know, I had a great relationship with him, so I was open and honest, and just said, you know, I think the way the club is at the moment, you know, I don't see us competing with the top teams and signing players to do that. You know, would you grant me a transfer request? And he said, obviously, begrudgingly, I don't want to lose you. You know, you're one of our best young players, but you know, the finances that we'll get for you will certainly help with the troubles that we've got at the moment. So he granted me a transfer request. I think he'd always respected my.
Do you think he knew deep down his head's turned here now? And
I think so.
Ambitious than the club.
And do you know what? If he'd have said no, you're not going anywhere. You know, I've got you under contract for the next 4 years. I'd have given everything that I had for Warrington. That was the way it was. But thankfully, you know, Peter respected, you know, my opinions on it, and I certainly respected his, and you know, he put me up on transfer, which. You didn't know which way it was going to go because transfer fees are pretty much gone. With like obviously the Bosman ruling coming in all sports, where you know, as soon as you're out of contract, then you're free to walk. So it was a big lump for somebody to pay. You know, certainly in rugby league. You know, and initially he put £1 million on me, which was, you know, I think double what the highest ever salary was paid. The highest ever transfer fee that was paid. So it was just then open to offers. So the first offer that I got was literally when it went public was the London Broncos.
Right.
Obviously Richard Branson had just bought the Broncos. Yeah. So it was it was a funny old time. I got a phone call. It was a guy introduced himself, a guy called Brad Rosser, who was the chief exec of the Broncos at the time. And he said, would you be willing to come and speak to us? Now, obviously, I knew Branson had bought him. You know, you look at his wealth behind it, and you think, you know, is this a club that can really compete? He talked about some of the Australian players that they were looking to bring over. So I said, definitely, I'll come and speak to you, and then see what's the best decision for my career and for my family. So he said to me, what are you doing tomorrow? So we had nothing on. So he said, right, we're going to send a car to your house. I lived in Springhead in Oldham. So we're going to send a car to your house, take you down to Barton Airspace in Manchester. We're going to send Richard's helicopter up for you, fly you down to London, show you all the facilities at the Broncos. Obviously they were playing at the Stoop, at the Harlequins at the time. House in Richmond where you'll live, obviously a beautiful part of the world. He says, and then it's on to meet the man himself at Holland Park for dinner. Wow. His house. So I remember getting off the phone and telling Lindsay, and like she thought of the Broncos as they were, and you know, probably a top 8 side at best. And she says, you're not going to Broncos. I said, I doubt I'm going to the Broncos, but we're definitely going there tomorrow.
We'll have a day out though.
yeah. So we got picked up in the morning. Big red Virgin helicopter down to. We met at Kempton Park. We landed at Kempton Park Racecourse, where we was met by Tony Curry, who was the Australian coach at the time, the Broncos, ex-Brisbane Broncos player. And then it took us round, showed us all the facilities and training facilities that they were looking at. And then we went on to meet the main man. So we rocked up at this gaff, £8 million house at Holland Park. And so they said Richard's in a business meeting at the moment. He'll be through when he's done. So we're sat in this lounge area and there's like a U-shape of couches, a little coffee table in front. So we're just chatting away, and the next thing Richard Branson walked in, and he's just got a real aura about him. Real
like when
he just went deathly silent.
Yeah.
And he just walked straight over to me, didn't say anything, just lifted my leg onto this coffee table and started shining my shoe with his shirt. He said, "So what have I got to do to get you?" I'm like, "How good's this?" Got a 19-year-old Scally from Oldham, got a billionaire polishing my shoes. But it was that impressive what the Broncos had to say, and that the players they were looking at. That I actually agreed personal terms.
Did you? Yeah.
There and then, personal terms were pretty much. We'll give you whatever you want.
Right.
So I agreed that there and then. What was still to be negotiated was the transfer fee with Warrington of what they were willing to pay. However, a couple of days after, St Helens come in, and my only reason for leaving Warrington was about winning trophies and playing with the best players and playing on the biggest stage. And Saints had just done the 96, 97 back-to-back Challenge Cup. And I think they won the first Super League, and it was a no-brainer.
It's like institutions, though, aren't they?
I mean, I played with a lot of the players. Your likes of Jointy and Anthony Sullivan, players like that of Bobby Goulding, Kieran Cunningham at Great Britain level.
Yeah.
So I knew the players that I was joining.
Yeah.
And it was it was a no-brainer. So I mean, the negotiations with Saints were pretty quick, and then they were willing to pay Warrington what.
Bet you were like that. Where's the meal at this place?
I know. Yeah. Tom Ellard's house wasn't quite the same. No, but it was. But I wanted to play on the big stage, and I look back now at the career I had and some of the playing opportunities and the things we've won and the places you played and the people you've met.
Yeah.
What a decision.
So I mean, like I've always said sort of, and it's something that I wanted to touch on, like, but you've half mentioned it. So I just put down, like, at Saints you were serial winners, but the standards, and I think it's all right. Like, when I've spoken to people and they've won things, but on a different scale, you were winning it back to back to back. How do you keep motivated in them things to keep drilling them standards?
I think I've always said it. When I left Warrington to join Saints, so my first 1998 was a pretty tough year. My first season at Saints, and then 99 we won the grand final under Ellery, and that grand final was something special.
Mm-hmm.
It's my first one as a player winning a major trophy, and when all you want to do is win like that, and then when you've tasted it, you think, will I want it as much?
Yeah.
You want it a million times more. You
Yeah.
go, I want to do this again. I want to do it again and again and again. I want to do it 3 times a year. I want to do it in the Challenge Cup, and that was us. And I always say the biggest thing of Saints, still from my day and still today, is the recruitment policies. But we've always signed good players. We're a club that can attract the best players because of the history of the club and the people involved. But they sign the people as well. They sign the person before the player. And talking to Sean Wayne, this is one of his philosophies, and he talks about he does talks now within corporate, and he talks about the players that he signed at Wigan, and the best players are the best people.
Yeah.
And that was us at Saints. You can, and it was kind of driven by the board, but they'd always have an input from some senior players, and usually like myself, Chris Joynt, Sean Long, and they might be looking at a player and he'd say, well, you know, we know what they can do on the field, what they're like as a person. Do you know any background? Do you know people who know them and will they fit in? And if we said no, if we said, you know, he's a great player, but it's a tool off the pitch, they wouldn't sign him. Yeah. You know, because that's the culture of the club was far greater than just the performance on the field. And I think that's been the secret to success. You know, we've had good people, and when you talk about players willing to work for each other and standards being driven by players, they don't need it telling off a coach or, you know, putting on a notice board in the changing rooms. You know, it's driven from within. Yeah. And that's always been
a good dressing room sort of runs itself.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. And you look at, you know, some of the players, and you know, that's been the secret to the success at the club. You know, it's always going to be a club that's going to attract good players. Yeah, definitely. But it attracts good people as well.
Yeah, and one of the things I did want to talk about, because I've always said, like, do you think the rivalry between Wigan and Saints? I always say, obviously, I know it's on a totally different level, a different sport, but it's like a Celtic and Rangers where they make each other better, I think. Yeah. You know, because they're like, you know, probably get to pre-season, it's like, what are Wigan up to, what are Saints up to, you know? But, like, how fierce was that rivalry back in the day? Like, I mean, because you type into YouTube, don't you? If you type in your name into YouTube, the first video that lit you is you.
Oh, mate, I get it. But it's coming up. It's coming up this time of year, isn't it? I must get it sent a million times over Easter. Yeah, you know, certainly could build up to the Good Friday game, and do you know what? The rivalry was real. And again, because of that, because they were two of the best sides, probably the two best sides of that era, and they brought out the best in each other, because you know you had to be. You know, probably the highlight of my career is 2004 Challenge Cup final. Yeah. When we beat Wigan at Cardiff. One, it was special to me. That was my first one as captain, and lifting the Challenge Cup. But to beat Wigan, a good Wigan side as well, on probably still the best stadium. You know, I was looking down there a couple of weeks ago for the England Wales Rugby Union game, and
the Millennium
it's
Stadium.
It's amazing. It's an amazing stadium, and you know, that full house that day on a beautiful day in August against Wigan. You know, the Saints Wigan rivalry. Both teams going into it on good form. To get that win, you know, and it does drive the best out of both teams. And I mean, you look at the games that we had, and that one, you know, the one on YouTube
was that would have been earlier in the season then, wouldn't it? Because that was about 2004, wasn't it?
I think it was. I think it was the same year earlier on.
Yeah.
So it's between players. It's not. I would say there's hatred, but I don't say it's hatred because it's a strong word to use. But the rivalry is certainly real amongst the fans. Yeah. The players is probably a bit different. It's more driven about, you know, beating the better teams. Yeah. For me, I'm not a St Helens lad. I'm not a Wigan lad. So, you know, I've got a lot of friends in the Wigan side. I played with a lot of them boys at Great Britain. But you look at, you know, and everyone obviously refers to me and Faz. Me and Faz were great mates and still are. But that 80 minutes on the field, it's about winning. Yeah. It's about getting over your opposition, and whatever that takes, you know. And if it come to blows like it did, well, you know, he's no different than anybody else. And you know, it's about winning and getting over your opposition.
He told me though, I mean, the cameras and the commentary made it like about you and Farrell, didn't they?
Oh yeah,
it wasn't going for you, was it?
It was. It's funny. No, because we're obviously the infamous lip reading shit house. He's aimed at Dom Fanati, who's the Samoan. Yeah. I mean, if you look where he's looking on the field, and I'm on the other side of the field, but it's because the camera pans it. Yeah. I remember putting it on Twitter once. I replied to somebody on that. I said, no, it was because somebody said, oh, he's calling the Samoan, and I replied, I said, yeah. I said, thingy. And Sam Tompkins tweeted up, he went, Scully, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
Yeah.
You know,
don't let the truth get in the way.
Yeah. And it was funny. We did. So me and Faz obviously played in the Joining Jack team over in Dubai, and we did a lunch at the Ivor in Dubai at the Khalifa, underneath the Khalifa, and we did like a bit of a gentleman's lunch, and Brian Carney was hosting it. There was me, Radders, Faz on the top table, and
like that.
Brian just went, yeah, he went, go on, call him a shit house now. And Faz was saying, he said, I won't even call him this. No, and it was because obviously, God bless him, you know, our good friend Terry Newton, who was never backwards in starting a fight. He'd obviously kicked it off with John Wilkin, and then Stephen Wild running. So, you know, Wildy, whether he's throwing or whether he's just holding Wilco, Dom's obviously he's run, but he's run about 50 yards to join in and make it 2-on-2, and then obviously Faz has jumped in, so I just made it 3-all.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's and obviously that the game's changed so much now, and rightly or wrongly so, you know, rightly so certainly with player welfare and concussions and all that. You know, it's you've got to protect the.
I do quite like it though, you know, when you hear it on commentary, like you hear it in football, you hear it in rugby, but you heard it on that commentary, and we do not want to see this, and everyone's we do, we do. Yeah.
I mean, it's a gladiatorial sport, isn't it? It's about getting on top of your opposition, and sometimes it's been about, you know, slightly bending the rules to be able to do that, and but it's you're gonna get flare ups. It's a physical sport. It doesn't mean players dislike each other, or it's about being competitive, but you know, rightly so, the foul play has been banished. You know, some fans don't like the fact that has, but you know, player welfare has got to come first.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, so we've obviously touched on like the Challenge Cup and, you know, grand finals and stuff. But when you know that you're going to win Man of Steel, that must have been like, that's got to be up there with like the proudest moment, because everything else is like, even though you wouldn't have won the Man of Steel without your team, but it's your name on the trophy, and it's like,
yeah. I mean, it was obviously, it was great. You know, we're in the game for winning grand finals and Challenge Cups and World Clubs, and I've had the fortune, I've been very, very fortunate to do all that. You know, and but the individual awards are nice. Mm-hmm. They are nice, but I've always said it. I've been very blessed to be playing with some great players. But yeah, 2001 and 2002, I was more pleased with the second one, just for the consistency, really. Yeah. I think I got robbed in 2003. It was, you know what? It was one of my better years as well. Was 2003 the year after? So I was going for the hat-trick. But you know, as I say, I've been blessed to play with some great players, and they certainly did help make my job easier. But I do put it down to, you know, the standards that I trained at, the willingness to put the work in and develop my game and work hard. And
is it just, do you think it's, you probably more appreciate it now than then? Because when you're playing, it's just like, you know, you're on to the next thing, and you sort of probably put it, after the night, you probably put it to the back of your mind and focus on the next.
Yeah, definitely. I think all the you know, successes that you've had throughout your career, I think you do look back on them with fondness when you've retired. Yeah. You know, look back and think of some of the great times that you've had and the things that you've been fortunate enough to do. Yeah. You know, certainly when you're watching games today and players who are wanting to get to them levels, and so you know, I look back, and my career came to obviously a bit of an abrupt ending in 2008. You know, I was only 31 when I retired, but I wouldn't swap my career with anybody. Yeah. You know, I'd done everything that I wanted to do. I'd won everything. Probably just didn't do it as long as I potentially could have done. Mm-hmm. But then on the flip side of it, I got out healthy. Yeah. You know, I got out healthy. I'm as fit today as I've ever been. Yeah. And there's a long life after playing, but it was a decision by me. It wasn't something that was forced on me. Mm. You know, to retire. It was a decision because, you know, them last 2 years of my career were frustrating with injuries, and it wasn't through. It was probably completely the opposite. I'm going to say it wasn't through lack of effort in and lack of working hard to to try and get back and shake this run of injuries and bad luck off. I've never trained as hard in my life, and probably to the point. I mean, Daniel Anderson used to say to me, just sometimes just relax, have a day off. And I'm thinking that the more I do, the fitter I get, the stronger I get, the less chance is going to be of another recurring injury. And I don't know, just whether it's your body saying, listen, you've had 15 years at the top, you've pretty much played back-to-back international from 96 onwards, your time's done.
Do you not think it was, when you look at it though, you've started off at 16, making your debut 16,
well, that's
17.
it. So, you look at players nowadays and, they're breaking in at 20, 21, 22, and then, if they play 15 years, they're finishing at 37.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm saying. I played, 400 games and played in the mix of it. Played in the middle where you're getting through a lot of bangs and doing a lot of work. And as I say, maybe just your body saying, listen, you've had your fill now. But as I say, I'd set up other things while I was playing to move into, and I just think I was ready for that transition as well, and certainly not look back.
Do you think when you're saying about you're getting more niggly injuries rather than it being a cruciate or a this or a that, so it must have been hard to be able to go this, I'm done.
Yeah, because I know, I called it a day at 2000. So 2008, and I was playing some great rugby. But then it'd be a twang an hamstring or a twang a calf, and it's 2 week out, 3 week out, then you come back and then you're in for 2 weeks and then you do it again, or little things which may be coming from a bigger issue with, say, my lower back, or I've always had quite a stiff lower back, which I think caused issues with my calf and my hammy in that last year. But then, so I come back from the career-ending injury could have been my knee. I had a real bad knee. I had a microfracture in 2005. Got back. It was probably a year before you're fully back, pain-free. I was back playing, but just not fully right. And then got back from that. Went to see a surgeon a guy called Andrew Williams in Chelsea, and it was literally it was do or die with my knee. And he said to me, I think I can sort it. So he did a different procedure and got me back, and that was when I come back for the Brisbane game in 2007. Now, I'd not played in 6 months. That was my first game. I'd literally come into the players' training that week of the Brisbane game. So nobody expected me to play, and obviously we all know what happened on that day. Got back into playing, and then just had a freak injury and snapped my Achilles. And it's how many more can you take?
Yeah.
And it's one thing after another. Got back from that, and then we played Castleford at Knowsley Road. I got man of the match in the game, scored 2 tries, and it was scoring my second try to reach for the line. So I've got my hand on the ball, scored the try, and one of the Castleford players fell on my shoulder and kind of hyperextended my shoulder, and I knew straight away that I'd done something. Played the rest of the game, but then obviously told the physio, and it's just one of them, them weak.
You just feel it.
You can feel I've done something. It's just that weakness in lifting your arm, and so he said, "Well, we need to get it scanned tomorrow." So I went for a scan where they put a dye into your shoulder and put you under CT scan, and it was gone. He said, "You've done everything. You've ruptured everything. You slap, your labrum, your rotator cuff. You've done everything you need a recon."
I bet that was a shock, because I bet you didn't think it was that bad.
No, and it was how I did it. I did it scoring, and I've never had an upper body injury, never had a shoulder or anything. So it's not even something that's been weakening, or I've never had anything upper body. So, and I'm like, how can this happen after everything that I've gone through in the last couple of years, and then you do it scoring, just unlucky that you've fallen in that position. And so anyway, I said to the guy, I'd made my mind up that I wanted to call it a day at the end of that year. I think we had about 5 or 6 games left. Obviously, when the Challenge Cup was in August, and then obviously a couple of games left in the playoffs, and then hopefully a grand final. So I said to him, well, I got through the game. I got through the game yesterday. I know it's painful, it's weak. could I get through to the end of the year and then get the surgery done then? And he went, well, put it this way, you can't do any more damage. So fill your boots. He said, what we'll do, we'll put you in a brace. So I had like literally a strap round my bicep, went down my shirt, round my waist, so I couldn't get my arm above 90 degrees. He said, because the only thing is obviously you've tore everything, there's nothing holding your shoulder in, so there's a good chance you put yourself in the wrong position, you'll dislocate your shoulder. So I said, well, it's a risk I'm willing to take. You know, I'll get through the games. We've obviously got the Challenge Cup final as well. So I played the next 3 or 4 games and absolutely killed it.
Yeah.
Playing some of the best rugby in my career. And then it was Challenge Cup. And then, unfortunately, I think it was the second or third set of the game. And I got caught in a tackle, my arm come underneath me, and then Kieran Cunningham fell on top of me. And it was like, arm straight out, dislocation, and that was it. So he walked off at Wembley. It was funny. I've never felt pain like it because my shoulder didn't go back in. So I'm walking off. Like, physio's got my shirt in my arm in my shirt. Walking off. And honestly, I've had some injuries, you know, in my time and some pain, and I've got a pretty good pain threshold. I've never ever felt anything like that.
Yeah.
It was horrible. So getting the changing room, so the doc Simon Perrett, he's got me behind. So Joey Hayes was our physio. He's got him holding my arm up at 90 degrees there. He put a towel around my bicep, just put his knee in my back and just went.
Popped it back in.
Popped my shoulder back in, and it was literally, I'm like,
let's go.
Pain free. I went, doc, get me back on. He went, give it 2 minutes. And 2 minutes later, I'm screaming, but the pain was real. So that was it. That was my career over. I had surgery a couple of days after, and that was pretty much me.
Do you know, when you think about it though, I mean, I know you never want to leave the pitch injured or anything, but it's not a bad way to bow out.
Last game at Wembley.
Last game at Wembley, coming off there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, you say you played your last ever game in a Challenge Cup final, but it's more you feel like you're letting the players down. And well, there's one guy, Nick Fozzard. So Nick didn't get selected for that. He tells me all the time. So Fozzie will love this. So he always says to me, he said, "Yeah, you stole my winning pair." But he was 18th man for the game, and I lasted like 4 minutes.
Oh.
But so it was. You feel a bit of a fraud really but you know, I'd played the previous 4 games and probably got one at match in 3 of them. You know, I were on good form, and you know, there's no reason I shouldn't have been playing.
That must have been like the most disappointing thing, when you know that you've been playing well, and it only for these reoccurring injuries that are just you can't get on top
and again
of.
You know, it was something. So I had surgery. You know, I've trained. It was mad because I retired from playing rugby and then went straight into doing a lot more different kind of training and went boxing. You go, it's clearly I've not got a shoulder injury. And do you know what? I've never ever felt I've never ever felt a thing from that shoulder. You know, and I had a major surgery in that. So I mean, after the surgery, I've never felt pain like it. Right. I was in hospital quite a few days just to get the pain under control. So I spoke to the surgeon. It was Simon Roberts down in Oswestry. I said to him, why am I in so much pain? Literally couldn't get it, even with a morphine driver. And he went, Scully, he said, you know, when I do a reconstruction, we use like Kevlar ties to reconstruct the ligaments and what have you. He said, I usually use 3 or 4. He said, you've got 13 in your shoulder. He said, It was like a car crash. You'd just done everything. Just
totally detached.
So I just tore everything. You know, probably doing the initial injury and then playing games through it, continuously putting it under stress. But it wasn't something, you know, whether he puts 4 in and whether he puts 13 in, I don't think was going to make any difference. So that's why they allowed me to carry on playing. But then, obviously, doing the dislocation at Wembley, I've tore it a bit further. So I had a major recon on that. But you know what? So that was like end of August. Because I'd retired, the club paid me off. I was in contract till December. The club paid me off in full. Immediately, so I was pretty much, so that was it. I was out of contract, but I went back to the club every single day. I had physio and I trained with the boys all the way up to the end of the year, because it was something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to retire from playing rugby and go, I don't have to do the rehab, I don't have to get strong again because I'm not going to play. I wanted to get myself back to that physical peak fitness, and I did that, and you know, I trained with the lads and trained in the gym in that environment. Even though I wasn't going to play, you know, I trained with them to do me rehab and obviously see the physios and got back and just, you know, finished me.
It must have been quite. It must have kept you quite upbeat though when you're doing all that rehab, that you're in there with the lads as well. And
it's nice. It's on the flip side of it. It was nice then. Obviously, I knew I wasn't going to play. When you're in playing mode and you're in the gym. You know, like when I had my knee surgery and I'm doing 6 months rehab and you're on your own on a watt bike and you can hear all the boys out on the field. That's tough.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the gym on your own, doing your own rehab program, you're not kind of part of what the boys are doing. Even though you are, it's that's frustrating. But it's all part and parcel of the game, and we all know that. We all know that, you know, you sign up to be a professional player, you know, a rugby player, football or whatever, there's going to be times where you're going to get injured and it's going to be a very lonely place. And for a player, that's, you know, you're still getting paid. You're getting paid in full, but that's not the issue.
It's not the driving force.
No, it isn't. Not at all.
Anyone.
You want to be out there doing what you enjoy. What, you know, that buzz of running out on a pitch in front of you know, your home fans and all that. Nothing can replace that. No amount of money and that's a frustrating thing as a player when you can't do your job. That was a tough bit. But do you know what? All my injuries pretty much come in that last 2 years. I'd had 10, 11 years of pretty much injury free. So, you know, as I say, I won't swap it with anybody.
Do you miss it? Because I speak to a lot of I speak to quite a few footballers and stuff like that, and they're like, no, I don't miss it. I don't, to be honest. When I go to a grand final or a Challenge Cup, and usually you're in a corporate there, we're having a beer or whatever, but you see the boys walk out the corner at Old Trafford and you go, I wish that was me. You know, they're the times. Salford Wakefield away on a Sunday in the rain, mate, I don't miss it. No, I don't blame you actually. But so after that, obviously you go into like your business side of things, but you also go into like your coaching. And that's why I've done a lot of managers and stuff. I think we get I speak to a lot of players and stuff, but I like hearing from a manager or a coach or their perspective, their outlook on the game. And obviously, like we touched on it before, how things have changed since when you were coming through and that, and the influences of Sean. But what's your sort of philosophy, Scully? Like what are the main things that you need to like?
So I'm massive on effort-based things. I'm big on, you know, as I said, rugby league for me is not a complicated sport, and there's no substitute for being fitter and for being more skilled than your opposition players. You know, I think the best teams are that, and I've enjoyed. Like I never got into club coaching. I didn't want to get into club coaching because, you know, the game has pretty much run my life for 20 years as a player. You know, I'd done other business things on the side as well, which I wanted to do, and you kind of get your life back as well. You know, I play golf for my lad on a weekend, and I wasn't really driven by being a coach. I'm not a massive watcher of the game. You know, I always have the games on. I enjoy the games, but I'm not one of these who could watch a game and then or coach in a game and then go back and watch it 3 times on a laptop. You know, cutting edits and stuff like that. It's just not me. So that's why I didn't really go down the club coaching route. I wanted to do other things, and, you know, like I say, and get your life back. And then I got approached in 2016 about getting involved with the England setup, which is very different because, you know, you're dealing with the elite players. It's not like day-to-day coaching. You know, it's more at the time, you know, in the immediate time when you're playing, you know, international matches and what have you, and that really appealed to me. That's more just on-field coaching. And I worked across the pathway, so with England youth from under 16s, you know, did a bit with the academy or the women, and then obviously the Knights and then the seniors. And I wouldn't say it's as much coaching as mentoring as well.
Yeah.
And that really appealed to me, to just to be able to pull a young player and speak to him one-on-one or about things within his game, or even a bit of stuff off the field or what have you. Anything you can give what I've learned throughout my career, pass on to a younger player, gives you a great sense of satisfaction, in doing that. And I've really enjoyed the England Nights programs, dealing with the up and coming players, so a lot of the fringe Super League players or younger players that have broke into Super League who are your potential England players in 3 or 4 years. And we've seen a number of the Knights players since I got involved with the Knights who are now first choice England seniors
think of
players.
Like a couple of I sort of relate to like an Ollie Partington or someone like that who probably in and out a little bit at Wigan, and I think he was with you at the Knights, and then he goes to Salford and makes it his own then, and I think that programme is probably, it's so beneficial, and if you can pass on nuggets of like info, that's better than any shape.
Yeah, it is.
Do,
and
isn't it?
Do you know what, the Knights programme as well, because it gives them younger players a taste of international football, and some of the games so 2018 we went over to Papua New Guinea to play the PNG first team, and that's another step up. Yeah, it's not Australia, New Zealand, but it's a step up on what they're getting week in, week out at Super League to challenge them boys, and we want to see them in that environment and see them in the international setup and get challenged, and some sink, some swim. And that's where it's really good for players' development. But Ollie P, you bring up Ollie, who's a good family friend of ours. So my son Jake played with Ollie at Oral St James as a young kid, and again, I've always spoke to Ollie throughout his career. He's asked me advice on his contracts at Wigan.
Should have asked your advice on his haircut. Seen that?
Mate, he's had a shocker there.
Saying that, I better could get a smack for that.
Mate, there's a few of them that win in Super League. I don't know what it is with this mullet. But yeah, do you know what? I really enjoy that. Any information or things that you can pass on to these younger players. Be it on or off the field. But on field, the coaching, I love on field coaching. With a ball in hand and where you can just give players little bits of information.
It's
and
putting a picture in their
head.
Yeah,
it is. I'll tell you, one of the most difficult things, and I got told this straight from the off when you get into coaching, is don't expect players to see it like you saw it. And that's the hardest bit, is accepting that a lot of players might not get it how you got it. And you've got to find a way of getting that over to players, and that's something I really enjoy the challenge of that.
I think you see that, don't you see that a lot in like football, where like Roy Keane, the manager, he always said he could never get it over. So if he's managing a player at Sunderland and he's trying to tell them do this, they aren't capable of the levels that Roy Keane was at, or maybe like Paul Sculthorpe was. It's like, it's hard work, isn't it? Really, to try and get that.
That's one of the biggest challenges I think of a player going into management is understanding, like I said, that not all players see it how you saw it, or can deliver it. You've got to find a way of developing them players. Yeah, most definitely.
And I wanted to speak about this because I know it's very important to you and that, but you've done. I've put like life after rugby, but it's also involved in rugby because you've been a big part of the Steve Prescott Foundation for a number of years. And again, like you were saying there, where you've always sort of tried to keep your body at the peak of its powers. But how tough was some of them? Because you done like a Sahara
I did the
marathon, didn't you?
So I mean, obviously I got involved with Steve. Obviously, the whole rugby league fraternity got involved with Steve when he was sadly diagnosed in 2006. I think we're the greatest game in the world, aren't we, at supporting our own? I mean, you look at everybody now and the stuff around, Rob Barone and what have you. And Steve was such a great guy. And one thing I've always said is, everything that he's done post-diagnosis, we mustn't forget what an outstanding player he was as well. I had the privilege of playing with Steve at Lancashire and Great Britain. So I probably got more involved when I retired.
Yeah.
Steve was never backwards in coming forwards to ask you to, to do events and what have you. And obviously, when he knew I'd retired, obviously I had more time and availability on my hands, and signed up to a couple of the boxing events, and just got more and more involved with Steve and become really, really close friends with him. And I always said to him, Steve would always thank you for your support on some of the events and supporting the foundation, but so you don't realise what an impact that had on me. From being somebody who I challenged myself day in, day out. You ask anybody who I train with, I'd train at 100 mile an hour, I'd train at 100%, and everything that I did, I thought there's no point in training unless you do that. And I'm ultra competitive in everything that I do. You ask my lad now, everything we do. Your mate, and I can't. Unfortunately, I can't beat him now. He's kicking my ass every Sunday, but I still try.
Yeah.
But anything else, I'm ultra competitive, and that's not something when you retire from playing that you can just switch off. You've got to find a way of focusing it elsewhere, and I do that with business But physically, I've always enjoyed the physical side of it, and that's one thing why I've never ever stopped training. I've never stopped training at the level that I used to train at when I played. So getting involved with Steve and the foundation, but having that channel to put that into, on some of these extreme events that we've done, and we've walked Land's End to John O'Groats, we've done numerous rowing challenges, we've done boxing events, and obviously 2015 me and Nick Wilkie did the Marathon de Sable, which is renowned as the world's toughest foot race. How long did that take? So we was away for 7 days.
With Nick Wilkie?
Yeah, I know, mate. In a tent, in a tent with him, with no phones, no laptop. So I had to speak to him. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what? It was a brilliant experience. I met some real good people on the trip, but a real trip of a lifetime. Yeah. Just to do that and experience some of the things that we did, and for anybody who's ever thought of a challenge, I'd suggest that one to tomorrow. To sign up to it, because it's a life-changing experience, and that was something that me and Steve had spoken about, early in the days about doing the MDS, because every year these challenges would get more and more difficult. Now, obviously, we lost Steve in 2013. So 2015, me and Nick decided to do it in Steve's honour and do it for the SPF. But we've done some amazing events over the years, and I've not been as involved as I'd like to be in the last few years with the foundation. Obviously, still massively support them and do all the events when I can. I've just obviously with the England stuff and certainly the last few years and COVID and everything, I've
it's been
not
different
really,
for
not
everyone.
Really done anything major, but hopefully in the next 12 months, we can do some stuff and raise some good money for the foundation.
Have you seen these YouTubers now with the boxing?
Oh mate,
sign
me up with any of them.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I'd fight him now.
I can't remember his name. Oh, Jake Paul.
Jake Paul, yeah.
I think you'd destroy him, Scully. I do.
Sign me up.
Yeah, but one thing, the sort of one I wanted to touch on, this sort of something that we've spoken about a little bit before, but with the coaching, with the Knights and younger players and stuff, how much have the sort of mindset changed now? Because now, I was saying to my dad the other day, I was in Salford, and I used to work in Salford sort of when I first came out of school, and you'd go in every street, there'd be a kid with a ball, whether it was a football, rugby ball, whatever, and you don't see it anymore, do you? No. And I think, I just, have you seen that a lot in your coaching, where like mindsets are just totally different to?
Yeah. I mean, it's a massive it frustrates me, to see kids sat on Xboxes and phones, instead of out playing sport, because it does it. That's what gives you your grounding in sport and develops them early skills.
Yeah.
Them skill sets of, and you look at a lot of top sports people, they'll be multi-skilled.
Yeah.
They'll have played numerous sports, different racket sports, footballs, rugby balls, golf clubs, and usually multi-talented in a lot of, different sports.
Yeah.
Because of that, and that's from that early development of just getting out there and playing. And I mean, when I coached Jake's team up at Shevington for a few years, I'd half the session would be tick and pass.
Yeah.
I just don't think playing games, let players go and express themselves and test the skills. I'd always coach on the fly, from behind the offensive line and pull players on little things. I wouldn't stop the session. I want players to keep playing and keep practicing, and just give them little pointers in things they can do. Lines of running or catching the ball off the chest or different little things. And I think we're suffering for it. With participation, and it's not just rugby league. I think there's a lot of sports will tell you.
Yeah.
There's not as many kids playing.
Most
playing the sports, and
I honestly think, like, when you get the options when you're at school, you get so just before your last 2 years of school. I don't know if it's changed now, whatever. But like, I was never academic, and a lot of my mates weren't academic. And you might go into plumbing or joinery or something. You might be a really good golfer, or I honestly think that education's got to be far better. If you're talented at that particular thing, then when you get to a certain point, 14, 15, let them develop that skill more than anything, because not everybody knows how to do mathematics. Or
No, that's it. I mean, you see my daughter, my middle one's in the middle of picking her options at the moment, and you're having to pick some subjects that you've absolutely no interest in. It's not going to be, and not so much sport. I've subjects on mortgages, financial advice. I've other subjects, life skills.
Yeah.
Rather than stuff that
I can honestly tell you, when I left school, I didn't know what a mortgage was. I didn't know what a direct debit was. Didn't know what a standing order was, or any of these. You heard them, but there was nothing about that. It's not no real life training, is there really? No. But yeah, putting the world to rights on that.
But in regards to sport, I just don't think there's anything like, I love it, me. I mean, my kids have grown up on it, but they've had no choice. They've always had a ball in their hand, they've had a cricket bat, or a golf club, but it's certainly me. So my two daughters, they're into dance, so they're both dancers. They both love, gym. They both love being active and stuff like that. My lad, obviously, he's grown up when obviously being that bit older. He used to come to training with me and kick a ball about with the lads on the side of the field at Saints, and he's grown up in the sport. But you look at the development in him. I mean, he's playing golf off 3 now. He's one of these who can climb on a trampoline and do 10 backflips in a row. He's just multi-talented, but that's come through. Always being sporty, being active from a young age. And now not everybody's got ambitions of being that, but just the healthy lifestyle that it gives you as well. I just think is massive. And we complain about people being obese and everything else within life, and for me, sport just doesn't get enough backing.
And I am in a calorie deficit, so don't blame me, but
come over. I know you're a machine.
Yeah, but I've got a nice question to finish off with, but one last thing. How proud was you when you got your MBE? That must have been like, what happened? Did it just come through the post?
It did, but I wasn't here.
Right.
I was actually in Dubai, so I was playing in the Dubai Sevens for joining Jack, and Lindsay phoned me.
Right.
So my wife, she phoned me and just said, you've had a letter. She obviously opened it. She couldn't wait.
Yeah.
She said you've had a letter off the Queen, you've been awarded the MBE for services to rugby and charity.
Wow. Which
was, obviously it's a massive honour, really nice, and I knew it cost me a fortune and going down there.
I was going to say, did you
new
take
dresses
all the family down?
So it's really nice how they do it as well, because two people that have obviously before my wife, two people that have supported me all the way through my career and my life, and my mum and dad. They've done everything for us. They've run us everywhere. They've never missed a game that we've played in. Whenever we needed boots or equipment, they've done everything for us. So you think, I'd love to take my mum and dad to share that moment, and it's been such a special moment as well at the Buckingham Palace, and so you think, and then there's obviously my wife as well. I'm going to wonder how many guests you get, but you actually get 3.
Right. Okay.
And I think it's probably for that reason that you can take your parents and your partner. So I got to take my mum and dad as well, and Lindsay down to there, and me in-laws come down with the kids as well. So obviously they were outside the gates at Buckingham Palace, but then went for a meal in London. But it was nice for them to be able to share that.
Bet you were wobbling a bit walking up to it for the old chat, wasn't you?
Well, do you know what? It was funny because I was in the room at the top, and I was stood with Luke Donald.
Oh right, the golfer. Yeah.
So I'm obviously a massive golf fan. He knew the rugby, he knew of me. So we're just chatting away, talking about sport, and so not even thinking about why we're there. So he's Ryder Cup captain this year. Yeah. So we were just talking about sport and whatever, and then they call you into line, say maybe 30 at a time. So there might be a room at the top with 200-300 people in, and then they call you 30 at a time, and they actually called us both together. So we're walking down the line, funneling your way into the main hall where you get called through, and we're just still chatting. And the nearer we got, we must have only been about 10 or 20 people from the front. So the corridor is parallel with the big hall, and the guy put his I've not got the quietest voice in the world, have I? And the guy put his head around the corner. He went, "You two, shut up." He said, "No, we can hear in there." I'm like, wow. So we and then you get called in, and obviously there's protocol in how you do it. Obviously you don't turn your back, and you obviously don't offer your hand, and it was nice. So I had Prince Charles, who's obviously now King Charles, so that was nice. And obviously when he got obviously took over when the Queen died, that being able to show the pictures and what have you. And
did you have what was the chat like? Was it all right?
Do you know what? Really good, and obviously they get fed information on you and what you've done. So he said, "Oh, you retired. You look far too fit to retire. I think you should get the boots back out." And I'm like, "I'll take that." Yeah. But no, it was really nice, real good experience, and just enjoyable as well. It's not too pompous or it's just a really nice day.
Brilliant. And the one last one, Scully, and I'll let you go, is I've asked a question for a while, the same one, and I've just come up with this one, and because I know that you're into a multitude of sports, so I've just put down 3 people from different sports that you'd love to pick the brains of, basically.
Right.
And I've thrown that one on you.
Yeah, you have.
I should have mentioned that one, but.
So I mean, I love obviously the golf.
Yeah.
Big McIlroy fan. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any choice to watch a lot of golf with my lad in the house as well. So I'd like to meet McIlroy.
Yeah.
Obviously followed his career from being a junior and when he come through, straight to the top. Massive boxing fan. I'd love to meet Tyson.
Yeah.
I know he's had his issues, but mate, I just don't think there's anybody been like him, and certainly in the heavyweight division since that era, of him and Lewis and Holyfield and all that. Who else?
Tough one, last one, isn't it?
It's a tough one. I mean, do you know what? And sticking to my own sport, and it's somebody who I have met, and I know I'm very, very good friends with. He had a big impact on my career. Was my hero growing up was Ellery Hanley.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of being coached by Ellery, and in '99 for Saints, and he had a massive impact on me again as a player. I'd probably come to Warrington with a bit of the Warrington mentality of, you know, if it moves, whack it.
Yeah.
You know, I played with Paul Sculthorpe for a number of years, hadn't I? And Ellery was always one who got into me on discipline. And I remember a couple of times I'd been pinged for penalties, and he'd pull me, you know, in video review or whatever, and always say, Scully, you're too good a player for that. You don't need it in your game, and kind of, you know, got me out of that mentality and thingy. So I go the third one. I've had the pleasure of.
It's not a bad 3, is it? Really? That, you know.
No, I've got a good 3, but yeah, Ellery's always somebody who's I've admired as an athlete and as a player.
Yeah. Well, Scully, been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for that.
Dom.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.